The Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office is reviewing a decision reinstating the murder conviction of a man made famous by the Serial podcast.
That's right. On Tuesday, a Maryland appellate court ordered a do-over of the hearing in which a judge vacated, which means, in essence, tossed out the conviction of Adnan Syed. Syed had been out of prison since September of last year. Prior to his release, he had been serving a life sentence since 2000 for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Hae-Min Lee. He says that he never committed that.
That's right. Joining us now is Paul Cassell. He's a law professor for the University of Utah. He's also a former federal judge. And Paul, I know some people have been following this case for a long time and very closely, but others, this is all fresh to us. So just break it down and explain why Syed's murder conviction effectively now has been reinstated.
Yeah, so as your introduction mentioned, back in September, his murder conviction was set aside. But in that hearing, the victim's family had not been given adequate notice that there was going to be such a hearing. They received notice maybe late in the day, Friday, for a Monday hearing. And on appeal by the victim's family, the Maryland appellate court said that's not enough time. We've got to remand for a new hearing. We need to set aside the vacature of Syed's murder conviction. So that reinstates the murder conviction for a new hearing where the victim's family will be present. And it sounds like they'll be able to be heard as well.
You know, it's interesting, Paul, because people tend to think that in our legal system, you know, if they say you were not guilty and they vacate your conviction, you go home and you're not then pulled back in. Understand that the appeal was about the amount of notice that was given to Hae-Min Lee's family. But does this mean possibly that Syed might be taken back into custody at some point? Because we know that he has been rebuilding his life since September, taking care of his elderly family and working on the rights of formerly incarcerated people.
Yes, it's certainly a possibility that he could have his conviction permanently reinstated, which would then mean he'd have to continue serving the sentence. He hadn't finished his sentence when it was set aside in September. Obviously, a murder conviction is an extremely serious conviction for an extremely serious crime. So that is one of the possible outcomes. But obviously, that remains to be seen. It could also be that the judge who is now going to re-examine this in a hearing where the victim's family is present and presumably able to be heard might end up doing the same thing. So we don't know exactly what will happen, but we do know that everything is back on the table.
And so what's possible now? Because in some ways, people look at this as just like a legal maneuver. It's all quite clerical. But for, you know, what is a murder charge and someone lost their life, that's what's at the center of this case. It is very serious. So what needs to happen now for Syed to, I guess, once again be exonerated?
Well, he's going to have to prove that there's a reason to set aside his conviction. And the victim's family is now going to be heard, I assume, in opposition to that. And so I think this is a really valuable decision because it reminds judges in Maryland and hopefully in other states that if they're going to be important criminal justice decisions that are made, the victim's family should be able to participate at appropriate points in the process. For example, during a plea bargain hearing or at sentencing, and now at a vacature hearing. So these are opportunities for the victim to speak, not to have a veto over what happens, but at least to have a voice in the process.
Yeah, and it's worth keeping in mind that Syed says he has always said that he is innocent of these charges. And as you say, Errol, there is still a dead woman, a young woman at the heart of this. But we don't want to just put somebody in prison because we need to put somebody in prison. So I want to ask you about that because sources told CBS News last year that prosecutors were narrowing in on a different suspect in the murder of Hae-Min Lee. Does the absence of a development in this case since last fall mean that charges are not likely to be brought against someone else? What, with your understanding of the legal system, might be happening?
Well, it's going to be very difficult for the state to shift gears and go from one murder defendant who was convicted and say, oops, sorry, we got the wrong guy. It's actually somebody else. Remember, the state has to prove guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. And in this case, since they've already said Syed is the murderer beyond any reasonable doubt, I think it's going to be an uphill battle to say, well, wait a minute, it's actually some other fellow.
But I want to ask you about that because, Paul, if I understand that that's the case that they had, but since then a lot of information has come out, and the reason why that charge was vacated by the judge was because they found that prosecutors hadn't necessarily done things the right way. So so I understand that prosecutors feel like, oh, we did this, but shouldn't ultimately the goal of everybody who's involved, regardless of what side they're on, be to find justice for Hae Min Lee?
It certainly should be to find justice, but remember, we're in a criminal case where proof has to be provided beyond a reasonable doubt before someone is sent to prison. And I think what the Maryland courts have been saying and the prosecutor's office has been saying there is there are some new doubts that need to be addressed. But that's what this new upcoming hearing, I think, is going to do. It's going to take a look at whether there are sufficient doubts to overturn the conviction. The victim's family hopefully will be heard, prosecutors will be heard, the defense will be heard. And based on that new, fully developed record, we can hope that the judge makes the right decision about what the next steps are in the case.
All right, Paul Cassell, really appreciate you joining us to help us make sense of what can be a confusing twist in this legal case. Thank you.
Paul.
Thank you.